Good evening, Thresholds of Reality. Welcome to the podcast where we explore unexplained and mysterious events, phenomena, and legends. Tonight we are talking to Jeff and Pam Woolwine. Jeff was on our show just a couple weeks ago, telling us all about his UFO encounters. And
Such a pleasure to do.
tonight he's joined by Pam, his lovely bride, and they're here to talk to us about haunted encounter adventures. Strap in as we explore the edges of the unknown. All right, so here we are. Jeff,
Live.
Jeff, you were holding out on us. You didn't tell us that Pam was so delightful. But I'm glad to have you back on the show, Jeff, and glad to
Thanks,
have Pam
sir.
with you to tell us all about the spooky adventures that you guys have. So tell me, what is Haunted Encounter Adventures and how can we be a part of it?
Okay, so I am the creator of Haunted Encounter Adventures on YouTube, and we have a Facebook group, Haunted Encounter Adventures. And I'm like, what I like to do is with my films, I call them films or episodes because it's not your average I mean, when you go on YouTube or you see other investigations, on television, they're just some people in a dark room with infrared lights, talking to ghosts. I go a step further. I'm more of a filmmaker, okay, and that's what I like to do with these episodes. So what I like to do is I like to go out and film the location first, and then I go back and I dig up the history. First we want to find out if if the place is haunted or not. Then we go off and we film and we do seances. I use a spirit box, a ghost spirit box, and I have an SLS camera, and I put it all together. I make this like half an hour long show out of it. It's like it's like a mini movie, if you will. Nothing is hoaxed in it. Everything you see is real. We're not out there trying to get hits by people with strings on chairs moving stuff in front of the camera. No, this is true stuff. Everything that you see on our website, on our YouTube channel, is real. It's all edited down. I save the good stuff and chop the bad stuff. So I keep it interesting, and it's really fun. And so that's what Haunted Encounter Adventures is all about. It's not just someone out there doing ghost hunts, with night vision cameras in the dark. This is something complete. These are mini films, and I think the public would uh, like this a little bit more than just regular ghost hunting. And so yeah, that's what I like to do. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a ghost hunter, and from there, I'll let my beautiful wife Pam take it over, and you guys can have a wonderful conversation.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, Pam, thank you so much for joining us. Jeff didn't tell us he had such a charming bride waiting in the wings. Um, Now we were at the same meet and greet a couple months ago, which was a meet and greet for people who like to do ghost hunts or ghost paranormal investigations. And um, one of the things that we did was we met Rebecca Walker, and she brought her friend on to the show last week. And you saw their show and you said, you know what? They had a good time. I want to have a good time on this show. And tell me how you got in touch with Kyle and how that all played out.
Um, I saw the show with Wendy. Wendy's a good friend of ours. We do a lot of stuff with her. We did something Saturday with her. Becca wasn't able to make it. Bummer. But yeah, I saw the show and then I just started. I don't really know how I found Kyle. Um, I don't remember. I guess I looked on the page and found him. And Jeff had already been on the show before for his UFO stuff, so
Hmm.
he knew how to contact him. But I think I made a comment on Wendy's post, and I said, "Oh my God, you made that look so fun, Wendy. I want to do it." And then Kyle saw that, and then
Absolutely.
I
I think
came
that's
home.
exactly. Is that how it played out, Kyle?
Yeah, and then like I saw her post a couple times, and she said Jeff was on, and I said Jeff was awesome. And then yeah, blame me, Jedi. But yeah, then you messaged me, and then I was, we started talking, and then I got all excited. So here you are. I love hearing people's stories.
Speaking of stories, so Pam, you sent us several videos, video clips for us to show tonight, but I wanted to start with a question, which is, how did you get involved in hunting ghosts?
How did we get started with that? I mean, Jeff just I don't know. I
You
don't know
never had any
how. I mean,
prior experiences, or
I
that?
have. I've had experiences since I was a kid. I've just had different experiences, throughout my life. So I've always known, but I just never. I guess when you gotta be with the right person to bring that out in you to get, you know, more interested in it. Because I never was around anybody before that. Most of the time when you talk about it, they're like, woo.
Yep, you're
You
crazy.
know, that's how they look at you. So, it's like you got to be around the right person, to feel comfortable enough to. And at first, to be honest with you, at first, when he started doing stuff, getting equipment, I was hesitant because I'm like, I'm kind of leery of this. I'm not sure it's safe.
You're not sure
But
it's safe?
yeah, because I've heard people have horror stories about things that can happen. You know,
Like what?
there. Well, people get scratched. People get stuff in their house. We've had stuff in our other apartment. We just moved here, and we had some crazy stuff going on in our other apartment that I'm I'm thinking didn't follow us. I mean, I haven't noticed yet. We've only been here for a month, so I don't think it followed us. We haven't had the same activity yet, but
So you think something
yeah, we had
followed you to your old apartment?
he's had stuff happen at his other apartment in Phoenix. He had some weird stuff happen there.
Yeah, we
When
saw the videos of
when
the
I came out
South
here from
Mountain.
North Carolina, so he was already living in Phoenix, and I moved out here from. I just jumped in my car and came out here.
That sounds very
Yeah,
familiar. That's about what my wife did.
yeah. I literally came. I just packed my car up and came out here and like, hey Jeff, I'm moving in with you. But he was having some weird stuff happen in his apartment, that apartment, and then we moved to another one, and we didn't have a lot of stuff at the other one, but a little bit. He bought this spirit box from this guy, Pair Awakening, right? Rob Hernandez. He bought this spirit box from him, and he was testing it out in his studio room, and I think that's what invited spirits there to our apartment because he was testing it out and using it, and he was asking questions and he was getting responses. And at first I'm like, yeah, we live here, I don't know if I like this. But I don't know, I just started thinking, well, it's kind of cool actually.
Well, that's an interesting switch from kind of leery of it to being interested by it. Uh,
It's addictive. It's addictive. Like
yeah, what part of it?
I'm always on the phone on the internet looking for another place to go to. Like we at least once a month, but sometimes more than that. I'm finding a place. Oh, check this place out, and I'll look at the history, and I'll say, oh, let's go here. Let's plan to go here because I'm off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so we can go somewhere. Next weekend we're going to Havasu City to check out the London Bridge.
Oh, very good. So that brings up an interesting question. Um, what? Well, first we want to get to our viewer question. Where did you meet? Did paranormal activity bring you together as a couple?
No, we were friends on Facebook for like maybe 8 months, and we were just talking, and then I just decided, I'm gonna take off from North Carolina and move out to Arizona and check this guy out.
Well, that is a gamble, and I'm glad it paid off. I just watched
So
a show about Manti Te'o who got catfish, but hey, you scored big. That's great. Congratulations. All right.
so were
Well,
you
I
living in the
thought I
apartment,
thought it'll either work or it won't, and if it
right?
won't, then I'll just go back home.
Well, so that's a
Did
good
you live in the
outlet.
apartment by South Mountain with him?
Did you catch that question, Pam?
Uh-uh.
Kyle wanted to know if you lived at South Mountain with him and saw all the weird stuff going on there.
Yes, yes, I have seen those. Oh my God, yeah. He had me up there. It didn't take me maybe 2 or 3 months after I got out here that were going up there, and he taught me how to what to look for, and yeah, I started seeing stuff, and that was really one thing I saw up there one time. It had horns on it, and I was like, "Are you sure it ain't gonna get us? Does it know we're here? Does it know we're watching it? Is it gonna get us?" I mean, I was like freaking out because I'm like, I felt like it was watching us. It knew that I felt like it knew we were watching it.
Well, that's wild.
It was had this S shape to it, and it had these horns on it, and I was like, "Oh my God."
Well, that is definitely creepy. But the thing that we're talking about tonight is the ghost hunting.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was reminded of is you're selecting these places. You're getting excited about different places based on their history. Is
Mhm.
that part of what makes something a good place to investigate?
Yeah, most definitely. When you search the background of the place, and you know what's going on, then I think it enhances the experience. Okay, so for an example, I searched the background and the history of Yuma Prison, right? And so I searched, as to why it's haunted and some of the background stories about it. So I read this story that there's this little girl there that if you wear red, she'll pinch you. So I had to wear red to find out if I was going to get pinched. So we're out there, and I thought it was a bee sting at first. My leg started burning, and I thought it was, I thought I got stung by a bee, and I was complaining about it for a while, and he never said nothing until we got home. And when we got home, he showed me a picture from the SLS camera that he was using, and he showed me a picture of a little girl. It was a little child-sized figure standing by my leg, touching it.
Oh wow.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, yeah, because I purposely wore red just to see if the story would be true, and whether it is or not, whether that's what happened. But I mean, I did my leg was burning. I had a red mark on it, and he showed me that picture. So
Well, that's spooky. That sounds a lot like what Kyle has going on in his house from time to time.
yeah, it can happen.
Uh, okay, so tell me some of the places you've been around the state of Arizona that you think are really cool places to visit if you're looking for a ghost experience.
Definitely Tombstone. We've
Tell me
had
about
several
Tombstone.
we've had several experiences there. The most well around Christmas time we went up there, and we were out in the middle of the street in front of the bird cage. It was after midnight, and he was using the spirit box out there, and he was getting some responses with that. And I heard boots walking, and I turned behind me and looked, and there was this all I could see was a black shadow of a man, and he had a cowboy hat on, and it looked like he had a long coat, and so he was leaned up over something back behind us, leaned up against a pole or something, watching us. And I'm like, okay, I guess he's curious about what we're doing, right? So I kept looking back behind me, and I'm watching, and then I hear boots again coming up behind me. So I turned and looked, and he was walking up on us. So I said hello, and well, I just saw a black shadow. I didn't see no face, anything like that, and he didn't respond back to me. And so I'm like, okay, I guess he didn't hear me. Um, so he walked behind me and started walking down towards like Big Nose Kate's that direction, and I'm watching him, and then all of a sudden he just freaking vanished, and I'm like, where the hell did he just go? Did you see that, Jeff? And he's like, yeah. Did you record it? And I'm like, no, because I was recording you, and I just froze. I just froze, like you just freeze. He goes, you could have just turned the camera around, and I'm like, I didn't think to do that. I was just too trying to figure out where did he go,
You got
because
stuck in a
he was there,
moment.
and yeah, and then we were telling some people about that, and they're like, oh yeah, we see him a lot. The lady at the Larian Hotel, I was telling, because that's where we had stayed, and I told her about it, and she said that she sees that same person over there at her hotel a lot, and he'll sit on the benches, the little benches that are out in front of the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
She said she'll see him sitting there, and she'll see him walking through the courtyard there. She said she thinks it might be Morgan Earp, but who really knows who it is. But
That is so fascinating. I love that movie Tombstone. The history of that town is so fantastic. Um,
yeah,
when,
there's a lot of history there.
yeah, absolutely. Have you ever had a connection with a spirit where it wanted to speak to you or converse with you in any way?
Yes, very, very. This is very interesting because we were going to. It was a few months back. It was May, wasn't it? May, and we were going to Sundad, which is an old. It's just outside of Phoenix. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a really cool place to check out. It was an old tuberculosis sanitarium. I had stumbled across it somehow in my searches of haunted places, and we particularly like to find old tuberculosis sanitariums because of our experiences at Acadia Ranch out here in Oracle.
Right.
And so I found this Sundab place, and I'm like, oh, and they have these really neat rock formations out there that make different shapes and stuff. And so I thought, yeah, let's go check that out. So we rented a car and headed out there, and that was on your birthday? Okay. So we headed out there, and we actually couldn't get to the whole part of the town because the road was so bad. So we didn't get to do all of everything there, so we left. And so we went, that's the day that we stopped at the Gatlin site, which is in, where's that at? The Gatlin site. Gila River, Gila Bend, Gila River area, because he studies the Hohokam stuff. So we did all that. So we're coming back, and we hit this certain spot, and we we just had to stop. I saw these rocks, these black lava looking rocks, and I'm like, oh, I have to have one of those. So we stopped in this one area, and so he's out looking for me a rock, and I'm taking Ruby, to see if she needs to go to the bathroom. And so we're walking back to the car, and I just happen to look across the street, and I see this big, huge cross, and it's all decorated, and it just caught my attention, and I was like, I felt drawn to go over there, and I pointed it out to him, and he's like, yeah, we got to go check that out. And like we already had our equipment with us anyway, so we get over there and we start. It was across the street. It was a ways off of the road. We immediately felt like tragic, very tragic here. And so we got out he got out the spirit box. He started talking. He started asking the lady questions. I think she was very young. She was like 37, I think. So we were trying to ask her questions, and I started getting these images of a helicopter, and I didn't know what that was all about. So to make a long story short, I gave her this bear that I had in my bag. I felt like I wanted to leave her something, so I gave her this bear, and I left it there. Well, so we get back home, and I'm just really, really possessed, I felt like, to find this lady and find out more about her. And I didn't know why. So I get on Facebook because we knew a name, but that's it. We didn't have a face. We didn't know anything. So I get on Facebook and I look up her name. I find several accounts with that name, and but this one stood out to me. So I said, okay, yeah, she had a nickname, but this one picture, profile picture, stood out to me more than anybody else. So I'm like, I wonder if that was her. So I went on there, snooping around, being nosy on her page. Sure enough, that was her. So I really feel like she helped me find her because how else would I explain how I found her? Um, so I went on the post and I started looking at some of the family members or friends that was commenting on her post, and I started contacting them, and it took a little bit for one of them to get back with me, and then she got back with me, but she didn't really say a whole lot. But then she contacted another girl, and so this other girl that apparently Michelle was really close with, she contacted me, and we had a big long conversation, and she started telling me what happened and everything. And I asked her, I said, what is the images? I'm getting these images of a helicopter. What does that mean? And she said, oh my God. She said when she flipped her car and it threw her out, and she said she laid there. I guess somebody called for help. The helicopter came to get her, and but she actually passed away in the helicopter.
Oh
So I've
wow.
just got chills. I'm like, oh my God, because I just kept having these images of a helicopter, and she said, yeah, she died in that helicopter,
So
and
when you
so
say images, is it just something that was like popping in your brain, or like?
yeah, yeah, just stuff popping in my head, like helicopter, and like I could just see a helicopter showing up there, and we could see I could see like her car, you know, flipping over and throwing her out. It was just I've never had this happen. I swear I've never had this happen to me before, and I was freaked out, but at the same time it was just really neat connecting with her family, and then we started pulling stuff off of her page. That cross that's out there was actually at her funeral. We found images where that cross was actually at her funeral, propped up next to her casket and everything. So that's where that cross came from, and but yeah, it was just really. I've talked to like four. I've talked so far. I've talked to four different family members of hers, and they just really felt like it gave them closure. That she was trying to let them know something through me. That she desperately wanted me to contact them, and I said, I just feel like she just wants you to know that she's really sorry, because this was a very tragic thing for this family. Very,
I'm
very
sure.
tragic. I mean, she was only 37. Um, I think she had some kids. And so, yeah, it was a very, the family was telling me it was very, the one cousin that really talked to me a lot. She said it was very, she said we were all just devastated. And she said this has really helped us. She said knowing that she, is still, I said, yeah, I feel like, and I asked them, I said, so what's with the color purple? Did she like the color purple? And they're like, yes, she did. That was one of her favorite colors. And I said, I could see that. When I was at my car getting the bear, I had some purple fingernail polish in my bag, and I just kept having this strong feeling about purple. And they're like, yeah, that was one of her favorite colors. And it was just really, it was cool. It's kind of creepy, but it's really cool when you can connect with the person's family, and that helps them feel better. It was just really neat.
That is incredible. So that's kind of like a medium experience. Did you feel? Have you ever felt
Well,
like you're a medium of some
I
kind? You
felt
have a lot of
no,
connection to.
I've no, I've no, no. I mean, this has never happened before. I've never had this happen before. So I mean, somebody. I was in a a Facebook group one day, and I got involved in this argument that these two ladies were having, and the admin messaged me, and he's like telling me, "You're an empath. You're an empath," and I'm like, "What's that?" So I started doing some research on what an empath is, and so that kind of makes sense as to some of the other experiences that I've had throughout my whole life. I'm 54. but but it just kind of, when I did some research on what an empath is, and how they perceive things and how they're so sensitive to things, then it kind of started making sense. But this, I've never had this happen before, ever.
Well, that's an incredible experience. So, do you remain close with that family?
I've talked to another cousin not too long ago. She was told to. She said she messaged me, and she's like, "Yeah, my other cousin told me the story, the situation," and she said, "I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to reach out to you." So this cousin actually lives in Gila Bend, and so I started talking. I actually sent her a copy of his book because she's all into that. She's all interested in that. So, but I haven't. I think that was about a month ago. I haven't talked to anybody because I don't really want to disturb them. You know what I mean? I mean, I've already talked to them. I don't want to keep. I don't want to keep disturbing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If they want to
sure.
reach out to me, if they want to reach out to me and talk to me, that's okay. But I don't want to keep, pushing it with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I just felt like when we got back from that experience, when we got back home, I just felt so pushed, so drawn to reach out and try to find her and find these people. But now I feel like it's kind of, I did it and that's okay, and let's move on.
The moment has passed.
Yeah,
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 you did what you had to do.
yeah, yeah. That's how it feels.
All right. So, you sent over some clips or some YouTube videos that you wanted us to take a look at. Um, I think Kyle has those set up, and maybe you can kind of walk us through what we're looking at. Does that sound good?
Okay.
All right. So Kyle's gonna share the screen.
Oh yeah, I recognize that.
So, what is it we're looking at? Where is this?
This is it's in Sierra Vista. It is the old Charleston Bridge. They call it the Suicide Bridge, and they also call it the Lock Bridge. The reason why they call it the Lock Bridge is because couples, they will go. We did it. They will go and they will write their name and sometimes write their date of when they got married, and they'll write it on this lock, and then they'll put the lock, they'll fasten it onto the fence. That's what you see there. You see all the locks there. That's what that's all about.
Oh, okay.
But it's also called a lot of people committed suicide off of that bridge. While we were there, we were able to connect with this lady. She said her name was Nancy. Yeah, that's Dark Valley Paranormal. They're the ones that I saw it on their page, and I asked them where that was at. I contacted Paula, and I asked her where that was at, and so she told me, and I'm like, oh, we want to go check that out. So we met up with them, Paula and Ryan and their daughter Faith. She was with us on that. So we went there, and we had an investigation with them there.
And there was some spirit box Jeff was working on at the beginning there. What kind of things did you catch on the spirit box?
We caught that, like I said, we had this voice that said Nancy, and so I
Nancy.
started, yeah, she said Nancy, and so I started asking her questions, and she said um, that I don't know if he was her husband or a boyfriend, but his name was Kevin, and she told us that he pushed her, and she said that she wanted to go home, and she said, I can't because I'm stuck here. So that was really, you know, and I felt bad. I said, I'm really sorry, Nancy, to hear that. We don't know how to help you move on, but maybe we can contact somebody. Which Dark Valley Paranormal, they're currently they're trying to find somebody that can maybe go out there and help with that.
Okay, now we're looking at some SLS camera footage. For those not familiar, the SLS is basically an Xbox Connect camera linked up to a tablet that has certain programming on it. And the idea is that the SLS is finding some structured light, and it's trying to track humanoid forms and motion,
Movement, yeah.
and so generally you're using it to identify a ghost that's or a spirit or entity that's located somewhere that you may not be able to see it with your naked eye.
Yes.
All right, there's the little puppy.
Yeah, we had a really interesting thing happen with Ruby. She started whining and she came up to me wanting me to pick her up. And so when we went to touch her, she felt wet. And we had no clue why. I mean,
Ectoplasm.
everybody touched her. I'm like, oh my God, Ruby, why are you wet? And my husband, Jeff, he touched her. She was wet. She was damp, not soaking wet, but you could tell she had some moisture on her fur. And we could there. I said, there's no reason for her to be wet. So we don't know if something scared her, because she came to me whining, wanting me to pick her up. So we that was interesting.
Now, the Kevin and Nancy. Did you do any research into them? Did you were you able
I
to
tried
identify what
to.
that was about?
Yeah, I tried to, but I couldn't, since we don't really have a full name. I tried I don't know if there was maybe there wasn't any much documentation on that. I couldn't find anything.
Okay. One of the questions that one of the viewers had asked earlier was, are the paranormal experiences that you've been a part of, do you consider them evil, good, or neutral, in your opinion?
Most of the ones that we've had have not been, they weren't evil. We did go to a place with Dark Valley Paranormal not too long ago. It was in Sierra Vista as well. It was called the Brown Canyon Ranch, and we did have a spirit box there. We heard the word, we all heard the word Satan very clearly. We don't know if maybe there was some kind of, because it's out in the middle of nowhere, so we don't know if there's been any kind of rituals. It's kind of like the Casa Grande domes. We know there's been some rituals performed out there. So I'm thinking that maybe because some of the words that we heard on the spirit box at this place, and we when Paula was from Dark Valley, she was reviewing some of the footage. She showed me a picture where it looked like in the kitchen area, it looked like a face of a man was looking in the window at us, and it was pretty clear. You could see it.
So it looks like some of the input there. When we did our investigation at the uh, bullion, what do you call it? Bullion Plaza. That's what it's called.
Bullion Plaza.
Yeah. They were doing some spirit box there, and I there was a lot of stuff there that sounded like it was backwards. And I see Jeff is recording the spirit box, and there's some of it coming in backwards.
Yeah,
Why
I'll
do you
probably
think?
have to let him explain that one.
Yeah, why do you think it's backwards?
I'll have to let him explain that one. They're asking about the spirit box and why it's backwards. I'll have to let you explain that one. 'Cause that's your specialty.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Sometimes the spirits they just talk backwards. I don't know why, and um, it's sometimes it's kind of frustrating, when you're talking with them, and then all of a sudden they start, talking backwards, and so you really don't know what's going on until you go home and you review the files, and then you reverse them, and then you find out that they're really answering you. It's just backwards. Why it does that, I really don't know. I've been puzzled on that question many times before. A lot of people ask me why are they talking backwards. I don't know, but it's highly accurate. When they do that, they're answering you, man. You know, so it's not a bunch of gibberish. So when you play it backwards, the question that you asked, they're telling it reverse, and you won't know until you get home. One thing that I really found out too a lot in doing this, sometimes when we're there, and it sounds like gibberish to us over the speaker, when we get home, it's talking. It's making more sense. So, for some reason, you can understand it more when you get home and you review the footage. Review the footage, and what sounds like gibberish at being live when you're there talking to them isn't. It's actually there for some reason. The mic is picking up different sounds and vowels and this and that and stuff that apparently the naked ear isn't picking up, but the microphone is. And so when you go back and you play it, uh, and you're looking over over the footage, it's pretty kind of weird the way it works that way. It doesn't sound like much when you're there, but when you get home and you review it, they're talking to you, man. They're making sense.
That's cool. Yeah,
It's
Kyle, that's
interesting.
what we got to do. We got to listen to our footage in reverse.
Yeah. Well, they're talking in reverse. We're not playing it in reverse. It comes out backwards, and then I reverse it on my computer, and then it uh, it makes sense. It's talking to
Oh,
you
oh
in
yeah, I
reverse.
get what you're
Yeah,
saying. What
yeah,
I'm saying
yeah.
is, Kyle and I went to the Bullion Plaza, and we took a lot of. We did a. Kyle had a lot of audio. We also did some video, but it wasn't making a whole lot of sense. And I was like, a lot of this stuff sounds like it might be coming in backwards or
Mm-hmm.
in disparate syllable chunks, and maybe if we could manipulate the audio some intelligent way, we could figure out what it was saying.
Absolutely, and I don't see any other paranormal investigators, doing this. They just it's backwards, it's gibberish, it's nothing. I think you need to go back and try to figure out if there is something there, and when you do, it does. They're talking to you in reverse, and I haven't seen in all these other paranormal investigators on these videos. I haven't seen anybody else do this before. I guess no one has realized this or figured this out. But the thing was talking backwards, and I'm like, dude, what if we just play it reverse, play it forward and backwards and see what happens, and come to conclusions. They were talking to us, so in reverse.
Yeah. Well, that's
How
some
do
good insight. We're totally noobs at all this, so we've got a lot of learning to
Well,
do.
we are kind of too. I mean, we haven't been doing this for very long. How many years?
3 years
About 3 years, yeah.
since we moved to Tucson.
And
Well, we went with Jay and Marie in Phoenix to Sunkiss Factory
mhm.
when we were in Phoenix, but then we came here. We actually started out with AZ Ghost Adventures with